Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's weekly Sohbet and Dhikr. On this, the 16th of September 2021, I hope everybody is well and having a good day. And I look forward to spending a bit of time with you this evening. Assalamu alaikum. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us. Um, so here we are. And now we're living in interesting times at the moment, and there's all sorts of things going on in the world, many of which distract us from the remembrance of Allah, many things which distract us from, how we should be living our lives in a good way. But it's important also, because sometimes people, when they look at Islam, they they tend to look at things in a very old-fashioned kind of way as well. So it's important that we are part of the time. So when I say that we're living in testing times, and sometimes that this distracts us from how we're supposed to be living our lives, I don't mean for one moment that we should be living, as like hermits or isolating ourselves somewhere or doing anything like that. I mean, we have to live in the times. I mean, as you see me sitting before you today, I'm wearing a turban. This is because it's something the Prophet Muhammad wore, and it does have some uh, significance as a sunnah within Islam. But at the same time, were I not wearing a turban, it wouldn't mean that I'm doing anything wrong. It wouldn't mean that my Islam is incomplete or something. If I wear a different kind of a hat, it fulfills the purpose of wearing a hat. And many reasons people wear hats. If you're a worker, you wear a hat to protect your head from bricks falling down. So you wouldn't want to wear this. I mean, although material can be quite good when it's wrapped around like that, it gives some protection, but it's not going to be as good as a hard hat. Similarly, if you're riding a motorcycle, you should wear a helmet, because if you get thrown from the motorcycle, you could do yourself a head injury. And again, you wouldn't want to be wearing a turban or a songok if you were on a motorbike and getting thrown from it. You'd want to wear the proper protection. But obviously, I'm not wearing this now for any of those reasons, but simply the fact that I'm a Naqshbandi in the tradition of Naqshbandi Sufism, and their sheikhs have worn this ever since the Prophet Muhammad. And of course, I mean, it goes back to even like the Jewish priests. If you read in the Bible, the Jewish priests used to wear a turban, and they used to wear long gowns. These things have ancient origins. But do I wear a turban all of the time? Of course not. You see, there's time and place. It's appropriate for me to wear a turban now when I'm, delivering a sohbet to you, and when, we're going to do some remembrance of Allah, some zikr. But maybe it wouldn't be so appropriate if I was going through a job interview at a bank, or something else. It wouldn't necessarily be appropriate if I was riding a motorcycle. So you see, even something as beautiful and as sunnah as the turban, has a time and a place for it. But even then, you see here, I'm wearing a modern shirt. I'm not wearing this type of polo shirt. I'm not wearing some ancient clothing. And why am I saying this? Well, you see, today, my brothers and sisters, you do get a lot of people that they are marketing forms of clothing which actually, some of them are beautiful. I'm not going to say anything wrong with it, but forms of clothing which are antiquated. And, they were very popular, centuries ago, but they're not necessarily popular now. They're not necessarily regular clothing now. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these forms of clothing, but, we should understand that they are antiquated forms of clothing. And even today, you get, like, on ceremonial events, for instance, in the UK and in the United States, you will get some of the soldiers, for instance, like the Queen's soldiers. Anybody who's watched Buckingham Palace and the changing of the guard, you see British soldiers, and they're dressed up in their big furry hats and their long red jackets. And of course, I mean, if they went on the battlefield today dressed like that, I mean, they'd be shot, mile off. You can see them; they stand out. I mean, that was appropriate clothing. That was actually military clothing if you go back a couple of hundred years ago, because it was actually to scare off the enemy. Because you've got bold soldiers, they're dressed in big red clothing, and they marched in lines, and there was a way that they fought on the battlefield. It wasn't like guerrilla warfare or the way we fight wars now. So it was appropriate for that particular situation, for those times and places. But now it's become ceremonial clothing, and it is worn by the soldiers on special occasions, such as when they're marching outside Buckingham Palace. Why am I talking about this? Well, this is ceremonial clothing. Wearing a turban, wearing a long gown, something which is not commonplace clothing today. So yes, it has a time and a place. Why not wear that on special occasions? If you're getting married and you want to wear something a bit different, wear a nice ceremonial traditional gown from your, whichever tradition you come from, whether that's an Indian Pakistani tradition or a Scottish tradition or an Indonesian tradition. By all means do it. But it's not necessarily the sort of clothing that you're going to wear all of the time. And similarly with the soldiers, if it's ceremonial occasion, they will wear this clothing. But if they're going to war, they're going to wear camouflage, they're going to wear modern clothing, they're going to wear protective stuff, because it's more appropriate for them to do that. And similarly, as Muslims living in 2021, we should see what is appropriate in any given situation. Even, in the modern world, if you're a builder, you're going to be wearing something different to someone working in the bank, or someone who's a fireman or a soldier or a policeman, or each of these professions has its clothing. If you're a doctor or a nurse, again, you have your own form of clothing. So similarly, imams and priests and other kinds of ministers of religion, they have their own kind of clothing. But it doesn't mean that they should wear that at all times and places when they're not like enrolled and doing that job. So it's something that we need to consider as Muslims, because there are some Muslims who go around and they start saying that, you should wear Islamic clothing. Now, what is Islamic clothing? If you are a fireman and you are dressed in your fireman's outfit because you're working as a fireman and you're going to work, then, and you're going to save people from a building, that fireman's clothing is Islamic clothing, because that's the clothing that you're supposed to wear to do your job to save lives if you're a fireman. Similarly, if you're a policeman and you have a police uniform, that's also Islamic clothing if you happen to be a policeman. It's not appropriate for anybody else to wear it, but it's appropriate for policemen to wear it so they can be identified. That person is a policeman. If you have any trouble, you can go to them and say, I have a problem. Can you help me with my problem? There's a criminal who's robbing that shop, or whatever happens to be going on. Similarly for soldiers, soldiers have their soldiers' outfits, the protective gear that they need to wear in order to do their job and protect themselves. So it's like all of these forms of clothing are Islamic clothing because they're performing the purpose that they're performing. There is no such thing in Islam as specific Islamic clothing that you only Muslims wear and you Muslims should wear and no one else should wear. This is like a marketing thing. You do have, there is such a thing as like traditional Moroccan clothing or traditional Indonesian clothing or traditional Indian clothing. And traditional Lebanese, Palestinian, Afghan, yeah, of course there is. But it's not Islamic clothing any more than my traditional English clothing is Christian clothing or, Islamic clothing. Clothes don't have a religion. They're just clothes and they're to serve a purpose. And that purpose may be to keep us warm or maybe to protect us, depending on why we're wearing it at any given situation. A uniform has a particular purpose. The uniforms of the services such as police, firemen, soldiers, medical professionals, in all of these professions, that clothing is designed to protect the people while they're at work. Even builders, a builder is wearing protective clothing as well. They have to wear shoes that are steel toe capped. They have to wear a helmet, and sensible clothing that is for that work site, because otherwise they can put themselves at risk. These clothes have a purpose. In other aspects of day-to-day life, people wear clothing for fashion, to beautify themselves. Within reason, this is fine. This is normal. Human beings are going to want to wear nice clothing and dress nice if they're going out for an evening, for a meal, to an event or something like this. If they're going to get married, people are going to want to wear something nice. Nothing wrong with that. And similarly, I mean, if people are going to a job interview, or they're going to a particular function, in that sense, there's a uniform for it. There's something you should wear. If you wear that, you will actually carry yourself off. I mean, for instance, if I'm going to give a talk at a mosque, and I turn up in ripped jeans and a t-shirt and a baseball cap, they'll be still looking at the door waiting for the imam to arrive, because they don't expect an imam to be wearing that. I mean, an imam could wear that, but you wouldn't necessarily want to wear it while he's going to do imam stuff. So it has a, there's a uniform for each particular role. I mean, it's like similarly with a vicar in a church or a priest. They have their uniform so that you can identify them, that they are a priest or a vicar. But it doesn't mean that everybody who's praying in that church is wearing the same thing as the priest, or everybody who's praying in the mosque is wearing the same thing as the imam or the sheikh, because they're not performing the function of the imam or the sheikh. So it doesn't matter. They don't need to wear that uniform. Yeah, somebody just commented on Instagram and said that Abu Lahab wore a turban and a cloak, and he had a beard. Did that make him a Muslim? Well, of course not. He was far from Islam in his behavior. And this is the other thing as well. If you look at the traditional long shirt and the turban, it's traditional Middle Eastern clothing. I was going to say traditional Arab clothing, but Jews wore it as well. It was traditional Middle Eastern clothing. People across the region, they wore that hundreds of years ago. And it didn't matter whether they were Jews or Christians or whatever, they wore that. And many people kept beards, because you didn't have Gillette Mac Free and clippers and all the things that we've got today that make it just so easy to just, you're shaved. This is a different world that we are living in now. So obviously, people are going to carry themselves a bit different. Now, that doesn't mean we should ignore this aspect of the Sunnah either. If you notice, I often wear a hat. I often cover my head, and there's practical reasons for that as well. Keeps your head warm in winter and protects your head from the sun in summer. There's a purpose for it. It helps regulate your body temperature. But we shouldn't ignore it necessarily, but we should contextualize it and understand what we can get from that and what we shouldn't. And the other thing is, it's the fact that we shouldn't, if somebody's telling us that we have to change the way we dress in order to be a Muslim, this is ignorance. This is people that are not understanding that Islam is about Iman. Iman is what comes first. You have to have Iman. You have to have faith in Allah, in the Messenger, in what was given to the Messenger, the Holy Quran, and the other inspiration that ended up recorded in the Hadith and the Sunnah. This is the root of Islam. This is what we need to keep hold of. How people dress, that's going to change. It's changed. If you compared how Muslims were dressing in the time of the Prophet Muhammad to how Muslims were dressing a century later, it was different. It may have looked a bit similar to modernized, but you look closely, it's different. If you compared that to what they were wearing a couple of centuries after that, it was different again. If you compared what the Muslims were wearing in Ottoman Empire and what they were wearing in Indonesia, quite different. There's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences. This is culture. And we shouldn't confuse culture with religion and think that people have to adopt a particular kind of culture in order to be a good Muslim, because it's superficial. What matters is, do we have faith in our hearts? Do we believe in Allah? And if we believe in Allah, what are we doing about that? How are we living in our lives? Do we keep our prayers? Do we keep remembering Allah in our day-to-day actions? Do we do good deeds? If we see somebody who's in need of help, do we ignore them, or do we go up to them and say, how can I help you? And then help them in whatever they need help with. You see, this is what makes a Muslim. It is not how they are dressed. Anybody can stick a turban on their head, or a pagri, or a songok, and wear a long shirt. Anyone can do that. It doesn't make them a good Muslim. Anyone can grow a beard. Fidel Castro had a big beard. There's a saying of beautiful story of Mullah Nasruddin. And the one time he was listening to the Imam, and the Imam was saying, show me someone with a big beard, and I will show you a good Muslim. And Mullah Nasruddin said, Imam Sab, my goat has a bigger beard than you. Does that make him a good Muslim? You see, there's these little snippets of wisdom that were left for us by Muslims of the past who had wisdom. They understood these things. They understood it is not a beard that makes you a good Muslim. What makes you, or hijab, or a headscarf, or a turban, or this does not change what's in your heart. And this is also the wisdom behind the dhikr that I read every week. And in my own time, I read every day. We should be making dhikr of Allah. Because Allah says in the Quran, surely only in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find peace. And today there are very confused Muslims out there. Some of them say, where do you get this dhikr from? Where do you get this from? Because maybe that's not what they've been taught. That's not the way they've been taught Islam. But I point to this verse in the Quran where it says, where Allah says, surely in the remembrance of Allah, only in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find peace. Only in the remembrance of Allah. That's dhikr. There's various different ways you can perform dhikr. You can perform loud dhikr. You can perform silent dhikr. You can, and also let's not forget, when people ask this, one of the answers that I give over many times over the years, say, okay, where is dhikr in Islam? You really want to ask this question? Okay, I'll indulge you. You know about the 5 pillars? Of course, all Muslims know about the 5 pillars. Declaration of faith. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Or as a testimony, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasul. Is that not dhikr? That's dhikr. Salah. What do you do when you do salah? You make niyat, and then you say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All of the prayer, you're reading Quran. In the prayer, you're also making salawat. This is dhikr. Okay. You give charity. When you give charity, when you give zakat, obligatory almsgiving, or whether you're giving sadaqah, you're optional, you should give it, but it's not compulsory. Whether you give zakat or sadaqah, you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. You give that charity in the name of Allah because you're Muslim. You do it for the sake of Allah. That's dhikr. It's the dhikr that spurred you to give the charity because you remembered Allah. And when you give the charity, you give it in the name of Allah. That's dhikr. Where's the dhikr in Islam? Okay. When you're fasting, how can you keep a fast? How can you keep a fast if you do not do the dhikr of Allah? You don't have to sit in a circle chanting the dhikr, but you will be doing dhikr. Otherwise, how can you keep your fast? You'll forget. You will break your fast. You'll eat. Throughout your fasting during Ramadan, you're doing dhikr. You're remembering Allah. That's why you're fasting. And you begin it with the Bismillah ar-Rahmanir Rahim. You begin it with prayers, asking Allah to accept your fast, and you end it with prayers, asking Allah to accept your fast and to forgive you for any mistakes in fasting. Okay, what about Hajj? You stand in front of the Kaaba, labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Is that not dhikr? So where isn't the dhikr in Islam? Where isn't the dhikr? And just like with salah, you have your obligatory salah that you're supposed to do 5 times a day. So for Fajr, you read 2 rakats, don't you? But you can also read 2 Sunnah rakats beforehand. You could also read some Nawafil if you wanted to. You don't have to limit it just to reading 2 rakats of salah. If you wanted to read more, if you needed, you felt in your heart, you need to read more. Same with, Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. For all of the prayers, there's the obligatory part, then there's the Sunnah part, maybe there's a Wajib part, and there's Nawafil part, which, like Isha, you could read as many Nawafil as you want. And in Ramadan, we read lots of extra Nawafil, because it's not fard, it's customary, but it's not fard. But this is all dhikr. And just like you don't have to limit it to reading the minimum fard salah. If you want to read more, if you've got time to read more. Similarly, you don't have to limit your dhikr to the 5 pillars of Islam. And you shouldn't. Because Allah blesses those who remember Him all of the time. Not just remember Him, 5 times a day or here and there when they feel like it. And that dhikr, you don't even have to utter anything. Just if you see something, if you see a beautiful bird, and you don't even have to say mashallah, but if you feel mashallah, that's dhikr. If you see the sun shine and you feel it's beautiful and you think Allah or mashallah or subhanallah, that's dhikr. And it's developing that consciousness that you're seeing everything in your life is from Allah. When you get something to eat or drink and you go Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, whether you say it loud or you keep it quiet, that's dhikr. So it's about developing this state of mind, this consciousness, and it's not about the outward. It's not about how you dress or whether you have a turban on your head or a beard. Because if you think about this, you could be a person who's totally clean shaven in a suit, or a lady who's not in hijab and in a normal Western dress. But a person like this could be constantly remembering Allah in everything which they do. And if you saw their behavior as a result, you would notice they are very well behaved people. There might not be any other indication that they are a believer. But Allah would know. Allah would know. Allah knows His people. And some of them are obvious and some of them are hidden. So we have to keep this in mind. And it's not about how we look. And if I emphasize that too much, and you think I'm overdoing it, I'm sorry. But it is something over the past 21 years, I've noticed that people do overdo, emphasizing how people look instead of emphasizing how people should be, how they should live, how we should be on a day-to-day basis. Rumi taught us not to actually believe, but to be. Maulana Rumi knew this. It's not even about believing as such, it's about being conscious in the presence of God, being conscious in the presence of other human beings, being that's what being a Muslim is, because you're conscious all times. You're conscious that Allah is with you, Allah is watching you. Develop that consciousness. If you do that, even if your other actions are not perfect, like how you read your Salam might not be perfect or something, but if you're constantly developing that state of consciousness in the remembrance of Allah, you will notice improvement in your life. It's actually the most important thing. If you read the Quran, Allah is constantly referring to people who are mindful of Allah, who remember Allah, who see Allah's signs, take inspiration from that constantly. I must leave that there because we don't have much time today. It's started late. I had problems with my other computer, so um, my Linux laptop today. It's alhamdulillah. Don't know if either of my guests would like to ask anything before I start the dhikr. Sunny, Natalie.
Nah, I just want to listen you. That's it, I guess. Because alone in almost 3 a.m. in the morning coding. Yeah, it's good seeing someone else awake.
Mashallah. Make sure you get enough sleep, brother. Don't
Well, yeah. The
don't
open
deprive
source.
yourself of sleep because it is a blessing of Allah,
Well, yeah, I'm a coder, so this is what I do.
Okay then. Well, I should probably start the dhikr then because I have limited time that I can use this room before it's needed for something else. It's good to chat to you, Sunny. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. Before we do anything in terms of worship, we should always check our niyat, our intentions. We do this, well, within Naqshbandi tariqat, we read a little formula. You don't have to read a formula as such. The main thing is to just check your heart. But I read this. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. نويت العابين نويت الوسطى نويت القوة نويت الاعتكاف نويت الصدوق نويت الريادة لله تعالى في هذا جميع. I intend to perform the 40 days of retreat. I intend to retreat in isolation. I intend to retreat in solitude. I intend to perform the retreat. I intend to follow the path. I intend to perform the spiritual practices for Allah, the highest, in His place of worship. We begin with the kalama shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We seek Allah's forgiveness by reciting Astaghfirullah, which simply means forgive me, God. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. أستغفر الذي الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه إنه هو التواب الرحيم يا مسبب الأسباب يا مفاتيح الأبواب يا مقلب القلوب والأبصار يا دلائل المتخيرين يا غاية المستخيرين يا حي يا قيوم يا ذو الجلال والإكرام وفيد أمر الله Inna Allah basiran bil ibad. Rabbi Tashrifa. Direct your heart to the heart of your Shaykh. فاتحة الشريفة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صلوات الشريفة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 ألم نصر الشريفة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشر لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشر لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي ينكب ذرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن منوس يسرا إن منوس يسرا فإذا فرغت فانسب ولله ربك فقب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نسرى لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي ينكب ذرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن منوس يسرا إن منوس يسرا فإذا فرغت فانسب ولله ربك فقب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نسرى لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي ينكب ذرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن منوس يسرا إن منوس يسرا فإذا فرغت فانسب ولدى ربك فقب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نسرى لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي ينكب ذرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن منوس يسرا إن منوس يسرا فإذا فرغت فانسب ولدى ربك فقب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نسرى لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي ينكب ذرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن منوس يسرا إن منوس يسرا فإذا فرغت فانسب ولله ربك فقب إكراش الشريفة أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل والله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل والله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الفاتحة الشريفة أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين صلوات الشريفة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي قد اتيتني من الملك ورمتني من طويلها حديد فطير السماوات والأرض أنت وليه في الدنيا والآخرة توفاني مسلما ولكني بالصالحين آمنا بالله صدق الله العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين إلا الشرف في نبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه الكرام وإلى الله أنبيائه والمرسلين وكرماء الشرعين وإلى أئمة أبواب وإلى مشاكين في تاريخ النقشبندية آلية قصة الآلي وجغان الفاتحة أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله فلمعنه لا إله إلا الله 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 La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, alayhi salatu la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, alayhi salatu la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, alayhi salatu la ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Nabiyallah, عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد النبي الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد النبي الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الشفيع الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الشفيع الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الشفيع الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الحبيب الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الحبيب الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الحبيب الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى لا إله إلا الله 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 محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم إلا الشرف نبي وآله وأصحابه الكرام وإلى واقي سوي سرتين وسلكيون فاتحة أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Zikru Jalala, the remembrance of God. Arabic Allah. Allah, 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 Allah. حسب الله ونعم الوكيل ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسب الله ونعم الوكيل ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Allahu Allah Hak, 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 Allahu Allah hai, 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 Allahu Allah hai. Allah ya Qayyum, 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 Allah ya Qayyum. حسب الله ونعم الوكيل ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Yahoo, Yahoo, Yadaim. Yahoo, Yahoo, Yadaim. Yahoo, Yahoo, Yadaim. Allah, Yahoo, Yadaim. Yadaim, 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 Ya Allah. Ya Daim, Ya Daim, Ya Daim, Ya Allah. Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah. Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah. Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah. Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah. Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah. Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah. Ya Grafa, Ya Grafu, Ya Grafa, Ya Grafu. Ya Grafa, Ya Grafu, Ya Grafa, Ya Grafu. Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Sata, Ya Fata. Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Sata, Ya Fata. Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah. Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah. Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Allah. Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Allah. Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Allah. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Haddad, Ya Badad, Ya Haddad, Ya Badad, Ya Haddad, Ya Badad, Ya Haddad, Ya Badad. Bismillah. Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Allah, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Allah, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel, la quwwata illa billah, al-aliyyil azim. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 صل ربي وسلم على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى كل أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين على أشرف نبينا سيدنا محمد الصلوات على أفضل نبينا سيدنا محمد الصلوات على أكمل من سيدنا محمد الصلوات صلوات الله وملائكته وأنبيائه ورسوله وجميع خلقه على محمد وعلى آل محمد عليه وعليهم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته رضي الله تبارك وتعالى تلتنا شبه رسول الله أجمعين وأن تبينا بهم بإحسان وأن أمتي مجدين أو مدين ونيودي متكي ونيودي صالحين والمشاكين بطريق نقشبندية تيارية كذا الصلاة وتلاوة مزاكية ونوله تعالى جرت مباركة وعدل تعالى علينا من بركاتهم ويداتهم دائما والحمد لله رب العالمين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين إلى حضرة نبي وآله وأصحابه الكرام وإلى الله أنبيائه ومرسلين وكل ما يشرعين وإلى إلهي وشيكين أبتلك نقشبندية آلية كستان روحي ما أبتلك وقوتي كليك شعب ودين نقشبند وإلى الويسي البخاري وإلى مولانا الشيخ عبد الله فياض الداغستاني وإلى زند بيا وإلى صوفي عبد الله وإلى مولانا الشيخ نازم الدين اللقاني وإلى قسطو وإلى الشيخ أدانك بدر الدين وإلى الشيخ ديديك وإلى مولانا الشيخ هشام كباني وإلى الشيخ دكتور تاريو القدري وإلى الشيخ بادشاه وإلى الشيخ داود روساوين وإلى الشيخ محمد الديل وإلى الشيخ نور كباني وإلى أستاذنا وصديقيون الفاتحة وزمن الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم يا الله. Shower your blessings upon the soul of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and his noble ancestors and his noble descendants, especially the Ahlul and Ya Allah also bless all of the previous prophets and their noble ancestors and their noble descendants, and the Sahaba Ikram, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, the scholars, the saints, especially my beloved father, Richard Kevin Armstrong, and my sheikhs, Maulana Sheikh Nazim and Sheikh Sufi Abdullah, Ya Allah, raise their stations in your divine presence and bless their souls for all eternity. Ya Allah, also shower your blessings on Sheikh Sharif bin Ayatullah, all of the Wali Songo, Sheikh Yusuf, Sheikh Adang Badruddin, and Sheikh Didik, and Ya Allah, raise their stations in your divine presence and bless their souls for all eternity. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless our mothers and our fathers, our ancestors, grandparents, our brothers and our sisters, aunties and uncles, nieces and nephews, and especially our beloved husbands and wives, and our children, and all our future generations. Ya Allah, we ask you to forgive us, forgive our families, and to shower our families with your divine grace and blessing and love and support, to grant our families to be under your divine protection and blessing, and to grant us to have the best of this life and the best of the hereafter. Ya Allah, we ask you to shower your blessings upon our friends, especially those friends who are true friends, who stood by us through difficult times when no one else would. Ya Allah, grant them a special blessing, a special extra support in anything which they need help with that is, halal beneficial. Ya Allah. Ya Allah, shower your blessings upon all of our friends, Ya Allah, all of our acquaintances, everyone who's connected to us, and also upon everyone within our human family. And forgive us all for our sins, forgive us all for our weaknesses, forgive us for all of our mistakes, and grant us the inspiration to be able to live our lives in the best and the most constructive blessed ways possible, Ya Allah. Grant us to the right inspirations in our hearts that will help us to be able to make a more peaceful, blessed, prosperous world for everybody, leaving no one out, Ya Allah. A more just world, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, shower your blessings upon people who are unjustly oppressed. Shower your blessings upon people who are suffering. Shower your blessings upon people who are ill. Shower your blessings upon people who are going through any kinds of difficulties and grant them ease, Ya Allah. For you promise in your Quran that out of hardship comes ease. That in every hardship there is ease, Ya Allah. We pray that you grant this ease to people who are going through hardships and difficulties, whether it be from tyrannical governments, or whether it be from other forms of oppression, or whether it be through ill health or other problems in their lives, Ya Allah. We ask you to grant your divine support, to forgive them, to bless them and uplift them, Ya Allah, and grant them the best of this life and the best of the hereafter. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless everyone in our human family. We ask you to bless everyone in our human family. We ask you to bless everyone in our human family and forgive everyone in our human family. And we ask you to grant us to be able to live in harmony with each other and to live in harmony with all the other communities of life with which we share this beautiful planet. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. صلي ربي وسلم على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى كل أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. Thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you found that beneficial and blessing, and wherever you are in the world. If you're in the UK or in Europe, I wish you a very, very good evening. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And please don't forget, if you find these broadcasts and videos useful, to subscribe to my Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and also my website at paulsarmstrong.com, so you can be kept up to date with my latest work and broadcasts and posts. I wish you all the very, very best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.